Hello and welcome to the top 8 cut for Spellroo's June Skirmish. We have an Annie versus Darius matchup at the moment. They've just started with the first couple rounds, couple turns here. Darius in a little bit more of a control matchup here compared to Annie, who's definitely more aggressive focused thanks to the damage based spells. Can only really play on her turn. Darius with the straight up removal spells, etc. Probably faring a little bit better. I'm going to hide the score because I do not know what it is. So probably better just to hide it for the moment. Ferris Forerunner showing up for Annie's hold on the Zaun Warrens. Excuse me, Seat of Power. Darius probably still looking to develop their board further before they re-engage. Falling Star coming out from Darius as well, having both the damage-based spells and the removal spells. Very nice. Gets abandoned, and he probably wanting to hold on as much as possible here. Extending the lead on Darius is of the utmost importance before Darius can really establish much more of a board presence. I will admit I am testing some new tech here, so there's some card detection going on the stream right now. If you have any good feedback on it, let me know. Darius so far continuing to build a board presence stack deck from the Annie. Starting to move in with the cleave, so 2 sets of assault up there for it, pumping in front of up 5 might. Will take Darius off the board and score them another conquer. I do not know what score they're at, but you know, we'll figure it out later. With the stack deck, and you're probably just looking for more answers in case Darius has any other more removal in hand.
was 5-2.
Score was 5-2.
Yeah, 5-2.
We do have a score update there for you, so that's
Sorry,
nice to know.
5-2 Annie.
5 to Annie. Okay, 5-0 to Annie. Okay, no worries. We can fix that.
Yeah, strictly.
Yeah. Apologies. Moving a streaming setup from LGS to LGS is not exactly a easy thing to do. Annie in a pretty commanding lead here. Darius really finding themselves out of time. Maybe 1 or 2 turns until Annie snaps up game 1. The Overzeal's van and the Vex proving very difficult for Darius to be able to build more of a board presence. Vex needs to work. Correction. Darius needs to work with what they have here. At least slow it down. Try and hold on to 1 battlefield if possible. Falling Star out of Darius, targeting Overzealous Fan and the Inferno. Pretty good targets. Overzealous Fan obviously will rebuke anything that Darius tries to put on that battlefield. So trying to remove some utility from the Annie player. Nox is hopeful going in, looking for a trade with Vex. It does put Darius in a little bit of a precarious position still, though, because he needs to hold on to 1 battlefield. Right now, Hidi will go to 6, and playing on evens is incredibly powerful here. Lets you reset and makes just life a whole lot easier than going to 7. Darius will take the other battlefield going up to 3. Only committing a recruit. Very non-committal there, but Hidi is a little bit disincentivized from going 2-7 just because that's a much more awkward score to play from, considering you would still need to double conquer anyway. It just, if you have the cards in hand, it's just a lot better to keep the units back in base, develop the board, especially when you're ahead so far right now. Rumble, Darius choosing to contest the other battlefield for the Ferris Forerunners. The death knell effect is a little bit yikes here if he can't hold on to both. I don't know if he's taking that into much account here. Stack deck from Annie, looking for probably some nice removal here. Some good removal. Let the Forerunner die means that next turn she can lock it up, considering her options here. Makes the selection, recycles the 2. And the trades are done. Darius will go up to 4. 2 mechs will be spawned in base. players helping each other out with tokens. Interesting you have one mech token and not the other, considering you play Ferris Forerunner. You'd think he'd have an even number, but who am I to say? Very tenuous hold here from Darius though. Very much on a threat of being reset here. Only 4 runes and they're all exhausted out at the moment. Hidden card at the seat of power, likely going to be that hidden blade to try to hang on to his high power unit. High might unit, I should say. He still has time on his side though. Can't afford to slow play this. Can just take the recruit battlefield and pass. Going up to 6.
Did you get it? No. Do you reckon we're back yet? Nothing?
What are the servings each?
Oh.
And I think I have 2. What is it called? Pass.
Mouse hold. Oh.
I have 2 of those.
What does it do?
20 times.
Excuse me, just trying to fix some stuff. And he choosing to challenge the battlefield with the hidden card on it. Probably making the correct idea that it is going to be a hidden blade. It is indeed. Darius target for hidden blade. Looking for 2 cards.
Oh, yours.
And we'll draw them. Going up to 7.
Probably would
Can I
be.
shuffle again?
Sure.
A lot of them.
He runs out of tokens because people are asking for signatures are. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Shouldn't they bring their own tokens for him to sign then? Anyway. Nox's Hope will play it on Seat of Power. Darius will awaken with 6 runes up and a Seal of Unity. Very difficult to come back here. Probably just exploring all his outs before he scoops for game 1. And that is game 1 going to Heaty.
Oh, okay. Does this deck play any shades?
What do you mean shades?
Mana 10.
Huh?
How cut? Oh, you don't play Mana 10? Why?
Yes, I do. What do you mean discard 2 enemies? And then do environment. And move on off my back.
You oh. It won't even
Only
work.
works for stage 3.
Not fair. Why do you get all your items turn 1?
Sideboard's coming out and I'm just trying to fix my tech.
Yeah.
my gosh. Here we go. Nice. That's everything. Hopefully the card detection will work out okay. Seat, Zan, Warrens, and Seat, and Arena's Greatest, I should say, as our battlefields for this game. Darius on the play here. Just some simple 2-drops coming out, both Infernos. Arena's Greatest putting both players up at 1-1. Darius on the play probably wants to try to take more of that aggro position in this game while he has a chance. Probably looking for more units on board to try to play around all the damaging spells here. Nox is helpful. Second card for turn, always helpful. Recruit buff comes out as well. Not too shabby. Another 5-might unit in the base.
What card do you want?
Prologue.
Show me picture. Like who's which one?
Annie considering options here.
Thinking.
Probably just wants to keep parity in terms of points here.
Get to call me.
An accelerated
20 minutes.
game is definitely more in Darius's favor, I would say.
Yeah, bye bye. Yeah.
Just with having being on the play and most of the removal available to Annie being damage based, and being a little bit less efficient in terms of runes as well, in terms of power especially. It does help Darius control the battlefields a little bit easier here. Kaiser coming out just to develop the board and passes back. Darius now up 3-1.
I like my player, please.
Oh, not 3-1. I'm dumb. Now it's 3-1. Anyway. Both Infernos off the field really quickly here. Ferris Forerunner of his own onto the holding battlefield. Darius in a pretty nice position here. Most damage-based removal can't get rid of both of them. and a Kha'Zix and a Rek'Sai, excuse me, by herself cannot probably take on both of those units at the same time. Kaisa uncontested, 2 to 3.
Yo. Oh, you guys still doing here?
We're just playing friendlies. You didn't play today?
Nah, I didn't feel like it. Meta feels kind of stale.
Choosing to with the
You guys
Grim
met what?
Apothecary and a Vex, so both players setting up for holds on respective battlefields here.
Oh, I think I've seen you at some pre-releases before.
Yeah. Keep forgetting to introduce you.
Hello.
Hey
How'd
guys.
you guys
And
do
he
today?
does need to
I
establish
won,
some sort of conquering strategy here before it's too late.
within a tie.
Okay.
Not the ideal 3. I tied to him.
Finally.
How's Zarog been treating you?
Good. Zerog. I was just saying.
Darius here
Yeah.
with a little bit
I think
more
today he had to like half block,
time
poison.
on
Yeah,
his side.
To
big
defeat me.
card draw. Jeez.
Because he played against Festival Beat, which just destroys
Festival
me.
Lead and Slow King. So both are like top 2 picker.
Oh, is that
Riftbound once
Elvis?
again proving how much of a temper game it is.
Oh yeah, Elvis was telling us that he's running like weeklies on Thursday nights
Yeah, at his store.
in North Rocks.
Yeah, I went and had a look like not last week or the week before.
Yeah.
It's a bit small. Like it's
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah.
pretty crowded.
Yeah, but the reason we're interested in going is because he told us that the regulars that go play, the owner's willing to do pre-orders for like Pokemon products at Kmart price.
Lots of thinking going on right now.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
it's not bad.
I think we're gonna go play there so we can secure
Yeah.
some pre-orders
Yeah, cool.
at retail. So if you're interested in that, it's 6 to 9.
Yeah. If I got time on a Thursday and you're obviously
Ooh, big man coming out with both units choosing to take
especially
this entire turn off
I'm at Wentworth Point, but the problem is I gotta get back home from
and
work.
passes
Six
it
is
back
like a little
to
bit too
Annie,
early.
3 to 4.
Yeah, yeah. Because the reason they're trying to do it early is because they have kids there, so they can't go too
Yeah, there's
early.
heaps of kids playing when I went.
Yeah. I'm gonna feel bad if I stomp kids. Not
They
really.
gotta learn.
They're gonna learn the
No
hard way.
mercy.
Apparently, it's a lot of Lucario and a lot of Dragapult.
Mm.
So since I'm playing for Fairy,
Yeah,
I'm
you'll
gonna
have a
have
great time.
a very easy time.
Were you playing this today or were you playing for fairies?
I was playing for Fairy. This is Max's day. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
We're just playing for fun.
Nice. Alright, I'll leave you guys alone.
Peace.
I might see you guys next week.
Annie now trying to think about her own options here.
See ya.
The Ferris Forerunner still needs to establish some sort of conquer over the top. Ferris Forerunners in red decks obviously incredible for being able to maintain board presence even after the big 6 might is gone. Allows you incredible flexibility in terms of conquering separate battlefields with 2 separate units. Annie choosing to soft reset here and leaving the Vex still on the arena's greatest.
That should be right. Early morning mission, right?
Own Ferris Forerunner out on arena's greatest as well. So currently still happy to wait and see what happens.
Oh, then I lose.
Passes the turn back to Darius, who will go up to 5 for the hold.
Okay.
Longsword out, really trying to hold on to it. Definitely doesn't want to let go of that Vex if at all possible. Presenting a massive threat here. for Darius to decide where to go, who to trade with. Hidden Blade out on Vex. Deflect cost has been paid. And he now considering it. The Vex kill does let Darius regain some more mobility back.
And Shinobi Blade.
The Ferris Forerunner mechs in base though will present a little bit more of a conundrum for the next turn. Can't afford to deramp too hard here.
Do I have to show you what happens now?
Trade away.
Lots of thinking going on right now. Starcross coming out to protect the Vex for deployment later. Also, it completely stops this attack. Hidden Blade will also... he should still draw 2 cards, I believe, off the Hidden Blade, but someone can probably correct me. Current showdown still under contest at the moment. Darius with focus. Does decide to play out the Vi to secure the conquer here, so will stun the Ferris Forerunner. And we'll take it 3-6. Putting Annie in a fairly, no, not necessarily difficult, but 6, as said, is the magic number. And he can go up to 4 and get some free card selection out of the Zaun Warrens. And he now trying to think through their options before they commit to anything. Mech tokens proving very helpful here in case they do want to still contest on the arena's greatest. The energy being floated from the recycled rune from Longsword. The mech will go in to at least try to trade for the Vi here. Pretty desperate times if that's the first action to be taken. Annie definitely very much behind in terms of points right here. Needs to spend their units very wisely to keep Darius off of 8 points, but Darius with 2 fairly beefy units in base probably has it locked up if Annie can't secure something a little more solid than this. Kaiser going in, 5 might with the longsword. Will win the conquer up to 4. And he eventually does decide to use the mech on the other battlefield. Goes up to 5. And he essentially now needs to hope that Darius doesn't have any removal
Last time because you did the
on
two
his next turn,
turn before.
which seems fairly
Too late now.
unlikely given the colors that he's in.
Because you would have hit
No,
two.
because you.
Red yellow having both damage based and unconditional removal.
What?
You definitely attack.
Fury and order, I should say.
You didn't retreat, right?
Oh, true.
What did you
Is
do?
it though?
Huh?
Oh, like it's.
Kha'Zix's being played out now instead of waiting for
I didn't play.
an ambush. Oh, not Kha'Zix, sorry. That's a Vex. Oh my gosh, yes. So Vex will provide more of attacks for Darius to try to establish more of a board state here. But Darius still has that time. Does have the opportunity to take 1 turn off in order to get more might on board before initiating showdowns here. Regardless, either this turn or next turn, it would have to be a double conquer anyway. And who doesn't love 1 more card, 2 more runes, and some more bodies on board? He does take the little bit more of a risk that Annie does draw some more removal themselves. But depending what's already on hand, it might be worth taking the turn off to make sure they have enough units in order to push in on both these battlefields at the same time. Darius choosing not to wait everything in on the Sound Warrens up top here. Darius thinking that it might be better to establish a hold, force the issue onto Annie rather than wait.
Oh, it doesn't do anything.
Oh, no cards played, just a straight trade here. 5 to 7.
You don't need it, he's gonna boss.
Annie choosing to keep resources for the eventual showdowns she's going to need to have next turn.
Turn 4.
By not even waiting for the ambush. Well, yep, and there it is. So Darius deciding to commit as much as possible onto the battlefield, forcing Annie into the position. Do you have it? Do you have enough removal to push me off this battlefield? That is quite a bit of might on the Zound Warrens. Darius probably not having any other cards in hand right now. And he recognizes the severity of the situation and brings everything back for a reset to try to stop the game-winning point here. Darius with all exhausted runes, so not a lot they can do. We did see maybe some hidden blades could also be played here. Hidden here, I should say, not played. Hidden at the Zound Warrens. And passes back to Annie. Annie now has to take Darius off that battlefield or go to game 3. Just needs to figure out how to sequence it. Decides to push in both with Kai'Sa and with Vex. Keeping the Grim Apothecary for the eventual conquer if it needs to come across. Star-Crossed, excellent card here. Make sure that the Grim Apothecary can get more than enough of its value here. Nox is hopeful being targeted with the buff. Essentially a 2.5, 1.5 for 1 here. The Grim Apothecary also making sure that in case any further removal gets targeted anywhere, you're getting more value out of the Grim Apothecary play trigger. And I think that was a fist bumps exchange. I think Annie won game 2, essentially. Because that would have pushed him up to 7. And then Darius had nothing left. So I think that will be a very quick 2-0 out here from Annie. And on table 2, we have Techno Eagle versus Alcoru, LeBlanc versus Azir. LeBlanc has taken that 2-0 already. The other 2 tables are still playing, and I think we have another 20-30 minutes probably until those matches are finished. So until that point, we will go to a quick break. Alrighty, hello. Now I can talk a little bit more freely. We have 2 purple decks here. Annie and Diana are here in table 1 for our top 4. So Annie and Diana, Diana's not very favoured in this matchup, unfortunately. Annie obviously having more unconditional removal in just damage is pretty yikes for Diana. Diana more heavily reliant on smaller creatures in order to gain tempo. Both players just shuffling up for game 1. Zound Warrens and Ravenloom Conservatory presented as our battlefields. Clearly, Diana wanting to move onto more of a control matchup here as we are into our first turns of the game. Very fast plays coming out here. Vex being played out to base. Both players a little bit wary of gusts in your first few turns. Sorry, just trying to fix some tech. Diana taking the first point of the game, going onto Ravenbloom Conservatory here. We'll use the Diana energy for the stack deck in the showdown. Obviously, the Diana legend ability being pretty redonkulous if it wasn't for some other kind of broken legends in the game. Resource cheating in any card game is pretty good. Ravenbloom played and a hidden card at the Conservatory and passes back to the Annie. Likely hidden card, we're probably looking at a Tide Turner here. Obviously moving a Ravenbloom once you get to see what your extra spell is from the Conservatory trigger is very nice. Adds some scaling might to the battlefield for the hold. Probably the 1 to 2 hold the most important for a Diana deck here. Being able to make that hold means you can reset safely and play on evens, which is massive with the point tempo. Kha'Zix moving in. Conservatory is resolved. I believe that was a Stupefy. Diana trigger also being resolved here, revealing a stack deck. Stupefy will be played here. Draws a card. And it's a Pike. Interesting addition. Not something you normally see from a lot of Diana lists. Cleave being added on here to finish off the rest of the battlefield. Unfortunately for the Diana player, it was pretty ambitious to try to hold on to the second point as we do equalize. Inferno going in onto Zan Warrens, 2-1 in Annie's favour. Two runes readied for Annie as the turn is passed back to Diana. Diana now needs to probably pull off something fairly ludicrous here in the mid game. A Hui here would be nice, but can't really take too many turns off to develop a board state here. Diana needs to win pretty fast in order to close out the game before the other decks can accomplish their own game plan. Ravenbloom in on the Inferno and Zanwarren's probably looking for some more card advantage here from Diana. All the runes up in case there is any removal coming out. Flash being deployed here. Again, what I mentioned for Diana is now actually very true for Annie, in that they can actually afford to reset here and come back playing on even point break points. A lot more comfortable than being on odds. It also forces the Diana to be a little bit more vulnerable here. The Ravenbloom will need to stay there unless they deploy more cards in hand. We do see some of the cards in hand. A Flash obviously being quite nice here. Traveling Merchant being played out to base. Again, some more card selection here for the Diana. Really looking to try to control the tempo and just stay in front as much as possible. It is an equal score, but the point tempo is about even, probably more in Annie's favor here, being able to reset here with more units and might available on the board to conquer. Diana probably slow rolling everything just to make sure that they can ensure that they get as much card efficiency as possible. Inferno going in onto Ravenbloom Conservatory. That is open. Diana thinking about it. Will be accepted. Pike being played in response to Kha'Zix on the Zanwarren's showdown currently occurring. Will just will manage to defeat the Kha'Zix here because the Kha'Zix buff only lasts as long as there's only one defender. So having two there immediately removes that +2. And he will deploy the Starcross, get back some more tempo, Traveling Merchant and Pike back to hand. Of note on the other table in our top four is a LeBlanc Mirror. So LeBlanc not terribly going to have a great time against purple, any purple decks. Any considering options? Traveling Merchant played onto the Ravenboom Conservatory. So Annie trying to go for a bit of a nonsense hold here. I don't think that Annie truly believes they can hold on to both battlefields, but if she can hold on to at least one of them, she is very far ahead. Diana, as mentioned, is a generally much more of a tempo deck here. And being so far behind in tempo makes it all the more harder for Diana to come back. Traveling Merchant will be presented. Move trigger on the stack. Discards a flash and draws. Pike once again coming back out to try to secure this conquer. Diana not really being able to take too much time off from developing and conquering on board. And he will choose to deploy a flash to protect 2 of their units, having seen that Diana's already committed 2 units to one battlefield. Diana not having a lot of ways generally in her main board to deal with backline threats. Singularity does come to mind, but I do not believe this Diana has any in their main board or their sideboard. No, they do have 2 singularities on the sideboard, so not here for this first game. Moonfalls, etc. would also be some backline answers, and it does get deployed to probably pull over the Kazakhs in this case. Diana really trying to regain unit board tempo back here by pulling in the Kazakhs. Now only 4 might, correction, excuse me, 2 might from the Kazakhs because of the -2 from Moonfall. Annie now is in a position where she feels like she needs to really bleed out Diana on resources. The most important resource for Diana being those cards in hand. Without cards in hand, you can't discard them to Hui or to your traveling merchants, etc. Diana really tries to fight on a card selection axis, not necessarily card advantage axis. The Diana legend ability just lets you deploy your cards more efficiently in a showdown by not losing so many runes. Diana will eventually conquer it, equalizing the score here, 3-3. Turn is passed back to Annie. Kazakh, excuse me, why do I keep calling her Kazakhs, for God's sake? It's Kaiser. Coming out extremely accelerated here with the Longsword and Inferno all coming out to play against this Pike. Ravenbloom Conservatory trigger resolved. That was, I believe, a hard bargain. But I didn't quite see it. Diana, considering the trade here, probably wants to be able to take it back, but cannot. Not enough runes up for a flash. And so falls very far behind back in unit tempo. And he will conquer up to 4. And passes back the turn to Diana. Now, Annie is in a much more vulnerable position here. But Diana does need to somehow construct a decent conquer out of this without falling too far behind on unit tempo once again. And the turn is passed back. Annie will go up to 5. 6-3. Okay. I missed a point. Oh well, 6-3. Which just makes my point even more important here. Diana can't really afford to take much more time off. And Annie probably senses blood in the water here. Ferris Forerunner coming in to maintain hold on that Ravenbloom Conservatory. As the Kaiser is moved back if need be for an extra conquer here. Diana's 2 might units not looking very good here into larger red fury units here. Ferris Forerunner obviously trying to kill that. Not a great thing here, but an answer. There's an answer in a Starcross here, but does also mean that the Diana will go down even more in unit tempo. It looks like he will play that Starcross targeting the Tide Turner and the Ferris Forerunner. Feels not great when you have to do that plan. Tide Turner onto Ravenbloom Conservatory will be accepted 6-4. I'm just gonna quickly put on my jacket because it is cold as fuck. Oh, Diana going for the double hold. So as mentioned, Diana really needs to somehow construct a really nonsense double hold here in order for a chance at regaining point tempo. She could have maybe had a turn off if she was more thought that she could hold one battlefield against Annie, but didn't want to take that risk, apparently, feeling that it's easier to force Annie into a double conquer over the top. I think the other line of play where you stack on one battlefield might have been maybe a better choice. It really depends on what the Diana player thinks is in the Annie's hand. Obviously, if you stack both on one battlefield, then you are prone to getting blown out by any battlefield wipes here. But Annie doesn't do a whole much. Passes back to Diana. Now Diana's in a very interesting position. Actually, has she? No, I don't think she has passed back. Hang on. Otherwise, there'd be more drawing an and awakening of runes at this point. both players in purple, probably looking at fizzes as they sort through their trash. I am very confused whose turn it is. I have lost track apparently. Okay, so I'm moving in on the Zound Warrens. And I probably just needs to hold on to this for the game. An Eclipse, very nice here, -4, and a Predict. Really massive tempo swing here with the Ravenbloom's unit there as well, getting the +1. Cleave making some of that back up, because Kaiser was already 1 ahead, so I believe they would be trading in this case. Gust being played, I assume, on Kaiser. Gust is pretty backbreaking here unless Kaiser has a hard bargain. That can be repeated. There's enough runes up. And he's still thinking if this Gust does go through. Probably has maybe another combat trick to maybe pump up Kaiser. This is probably the most crucial combat here to determine who's winning it. Obviously, if the Gust does go through, Kaiser is probably trying to get accelerated back out. And it looks like that will be the line taken. Gust will resolve. Showdown will end there with Kaiser back in hand. There are enough runes for an accelerated Kaiser here. But we'll pass it back. And he decides one more turn is needed. And it is now Diana's turn. Diana now having a pretty big decision here to make. Obviously you can't leave both battlefields open, but Diana not really a deck that likes to hold very much. Prefers much more to be on the initiative, much more on the tempo. Accomplishing game actions is how she then gets all the might, right? From the Hueys moving around with the Ride the Wind, etc., with Ravenblooms, with spells resolving. But your synergies, your card synergies in a Diana deck are quite powerful. They really pack a punch, but they are quite fleeting, usually only for that turn. You think, you know, Stupefy with a Ravenbloom student in an Abandoned Hall is a massive, like, 4 or 5 might swing. but when it comes to holding for the winning point is a little bit more precarious here for Diana. This is why generally in a game of Riftbound you don't want to be on those odd numbers. You get pushed into situations which are quite disadvantageous for you. You have to risk something. You can't safely play around everything here, unfortunately. It is both a blessing and a curse to only need to hold to one, but unfortunately your opponent also just needs to conquer both battlefields, so you can't afford to really take the turn off. Hui being deployed here to base. One card hidden at the Tide Turner battlefield here. Probably, honestly, probably another Tide Turner, but who knows? There are some Diana decks that have been playing with some other hidden cards. Both players now need to think about how best to achieve their win condition. And he essentially needs to double conquer or lose the game. So this is the one that'll make it. Lots of thinking going on. This is a very difficult line of play to have to try to determine from this point forward. You know what your end goal needs to be, but how best to utilize your cards to get there is the issue. And it's one you always face in many card games here. Excuse me as I try to just try and fix some of this stuff. looking for more options here with taking back the Annie. Or playing the Annie, I should say. Cleave being selected out of the trash. And Kaisa moving in onto the Zan Warrens. Choosing the scaling threat here. And Diana chooses not to defend it. We are at the final combat here. Inferno, the only unit currently available for Annie to use to push in onto Ravenbloom Conservatory. And will do so. Ravenbloom Conservatory trigger there. Not a spell, so it goes to the bottom. Indeed, the Tide Turner will get revealed. Hui will move and trigger on the stack. Draw, given, and Tide Turner discarded. Hui up to 8 might here. And Inferno should be at 4 might here, already having the assault. There is a cleave that Annie did retrieve from base, but decides to scoop it up instead. It will be game 1 to the Diana. Oh my god. Oh my god, tech. Tech, please. There we go. So Annie in the end just didn't have the might in order to conquer that Ravenbloom Conservatory with only the Inferno and cleave up. Hui being able to move in thanks to the Tide Turner play was pretty huge there. Diana probably didn't contest the Ravenbloom simply because it's better to keep your resources close to the chest whenever possible. As both players move to sideboards for game 2. It is pretty nice for the Diana player that they won game 1 purely because Diana, as mentioned earlier, is not exactly favoured into an Annie matchup. Annie having more ways to kill small units with, for example, like the falling stars and things like that. And Diana being so reliant on getting tempo with small creatures small units before Hui comes out with all his ride the wind shenanigans. Arena's greatest being flipped here, obviously much more in Annie's favor, and Abandoned Hall. Annie now on the play. I assume both players remembered their triggers here for the Arena's greatest. Diana going second, obviously much less of a disadvantage than in other decks. Can afford to side out some of those 2 drops, knowing that more than likely they'll be playing Diana as their turn 1 cycle play. Inferno knocks his hopeful here out for Annie, so quite so far very calm game 2. Diana probably would have liked to see some blue runes at this point. Having Hui in for your turn 3 is pretty nice, while Annie's not threatening very much. Diana Showdown trigger will go on the stack, doesn't like it, and will reveal a flash which will go into hand. Conquer will be accepted 1-2.
That's what I'm thinking. So, I was mostly thinking because no, that was yeah. Those yeah. So
Annie choosing instead to deploy more threats to the board. Diana not really known for being able to take out multiple attacks at once. Multiple units at once, I should say. Probably Moonfall and Hui's your only real big ways of dealing with large boards if you can find them stacking a battlefield. Diana thinking about life choices right now. It is very difficult here for the decision to either reset back in base or to continue to try to hold. As mentioned, Diana decks generally not engineered for holding, and in general in Riftbound is very difficult to hold. Does decide to leave Diana up, passes the turn back to Annie as we equalize the scoreline. Showdown here for the Riftbound, for the Abandoned Hall, excuse me. Probably putting in the Noxus Hopeful, trying to fish for some spells out here from Diana. Diana trigger will be accepted. Didn't quite see what the spell was. Stupefy coming out here, as I mentioned before, excellent cantrip here on the Abandoned Hall. Is a 2 might swing effectively, the +1 and the -1. Replacing itself as well is pretty huge here. 4-2, currently in Diana's favor. Annie choosing to attempt to fight for this showdown will deploy the stack deck. Made the selection and recycles the bottom 2. Once again, another Stupefy out here. Not sure why that needed to be played, but maybe just wants to be extra sure. Maybe I missed a cleave or something. Well, there comes the cleave. So it would be 5-4 here. 5-5, sorry. 2, 3, 5, yep. And then Diana would be on 3 + 2, yep. 5-5 would complete the trade. Obviously not what Diana would like here. A double conquer would be, well, double point, I should say, on any turn is pretty difficult to come back from. But now it's whether Diana wants to invest more resources into this hold. Stack deck, more card selection, and gives the +1 to Diana. Annie really trying to force as much resources out of Diana as possible here. Diana will be at 6 to the 5 from the Noxus Hopeful once the stack deck resolves. And doesn't find it, so we'll choose to flash back. And he does not want to let that happen. Abandon coming out for the flash. Goes back into hand. Predict resolved from the abandon. Excuse me, there was a mosquito in my face. Nox is hopeful will win the conquer. So the double point in one turn comes true. Ideally, at this point, as Annie, you have regained point tempo. You don't want to try to expose more than you have to. But unfortunately, that's why units are exhausted when they move, folks. Diana's now passed back the turn. Raven moves student onto the abandoned battlefield. I believe we've already seen 2 stupefies, so unfortunately we won't see much incredible card efficiency out here. But we will see the Moonfall. So Moonfall being one of Diana's most powerful spells here, especially on the abandoned hall with a Ravenloom student, +2 to Ravenloom student, and a -4 should he choose to pull in something else. Indeed, it will be the Kaiser. So both units will be on 2 from the Annie, and Ravenbloom will be at 4 might. So currently just a trade here. A second Moonfall coming out. Diana really trying to make sure that Annie cannot establish more board presence here. Will bring down the 2 existing units there down to 0. Nox is hopeful pulled in as well at 2. This is a 6-2 right now. Essentially an even trade a number of cards though, because Moonfall has had to be played twice this turn. If Annie has any sort of flash or something like that, that would be backbreaking for Diana, having to invest so many cards into this one showdown. Ooh, star-crossed. Very tough here for Diana if it does go through. Diana does have the energy available if they want to hard bargain it, but the star-cross goes through, and that is back-breaking for Diana here, having to invest 2 Moonfalls into attempting to make that interaction work. Sprite Fountain, interesting. Something we don't usually see in a Diana list. The accelerated units does provide some nice, I guess, momentum early for a Diana, but generally speaking, the Sprite Fountain, for example, in turn 1 was usually de-ramping you too hard to really come back for much of a tempo swing here. But the Sprite Fountain here could be just what was needed, as the Moonfall effects are still on board. So if he really does want to clear both Noctis Hopefuls, he can with just the Sprite. Any player suddenly realizing that those negatives might still be relevant here. The Sprite will indeed go into the Abandoned Hall. Energy being the flash purely only for the pump here, because flash it does say move up to 2. Oh, unbelievable! There's another pike coming out in response to really try to blow out the Diana here. Pike Rengar. I believe that's the Rengar. Apologies. So Diana investing a whole bunch of cards in order to try to maintain hold of that Abandoned Hall doesn't make it. And he now up 5-3. Does go for the easy 6-3 scoreline here. Unfortunately, has to leave Inferno out there, it looks like, but can still develop in base if they want to just try to double conquer. Instead chooses to deploy Annie here for the Starcrossed back in hand, because whatever they can get out is definitely not going to be the Sprite that does it here for Diana. It looks like we'll probably go to a game 3 here unless Diana pulls out something ridiculous. Way to ride the winds could probably do it. Diana measuring up their options. This is probably where you are thinking quite a lot to see if you can still claw back this game too. And nope, decides to pack it up. We are going to game 3 here. Oh boy, technology is hard sometimes. Here we go, game 3 in our semis. I do not yet have an update on the other game currently going on in our top 4. That game is also still going, so we're probably looking at finishing pretty late tonight. Both players now resolving their mulligans, Target Peak and Zound Warrens for your final battlefields. Diana on the play. Both players playing out their respective 2 drops. Nothing particularly interesting to see here yet. Now comes the first big decision if Diana really wants to try to go ahead for the point tempo. Will choose to do so, takes Target's Peak. Surprisingly, we haven't seen many gusts out from either player this series. Both players choosing to either not keep the gust or not finding the gust in their opening hands. Another Ravenbloom student played to base, and turn is passed with the Target's Peak trigger resolved. Annie, now considering options, decides to deploy the Vex in base and just passes back the turn. Diana will go up to 2 for the hold. Annie not currently feeling that they have the spells ready in hand to really overcome a Diana here. Probably the most crucial point really to get is that 1 to 2 hold from Diana, as you can now afford to come back and let your opponent attempt to retake tempo while you have options open to you. Ravenloom student will go on to Zound Warrens. And the Conquer will be acknowledged 0 to 3, the Gust being discarded there. And then Diana being played to base, and the turn passed back to Annie. Now Annie has a better lay of the land. 3 runes up from Diana, though, could be pretty harsh. 4 if you count the Diana legend herself. Vex being thrown into the Zound Warrens to test the waters. Decides to let it go 1 to 3 here. And now Vex Apathetic is online. Ooh, Falling Star here is absolutely massive here. Really forcing more of those cards out of Diana's hand in order to accomplish much here. I don't think Diana can really afford to allow both units to simply just get zapped here. So he really needs to think about what is the most efficient use of their cards. Does decide to let both units get zapped. Overzealous Fan onto Target's Peak here, 2 to 3. The Diana probably just holding on for the main engines in the deck, such as Hui. I think I did see a Ride the Wind in his hand, so probably just looking to come back more in the mid game here. as the score lines are now 2-3 in Diana's favour still. She can take a turn off, develop that Hui in base. The Falling Star, presumably, probably one of the only removal spells that could probably get rid of a Hui here. Starcross, though, would also be absolutely backbreaking here. So probably needs to keep up the runes for those counter spells. The turn is passed back 4-3 from the double hold. Kaisa being deployed in base. Oh, no, she was already there. What am I doing? Yeah. And he, considering the options here, decides in the best to try to reset. Really let the Hui do their thing. Doesn't see the need to risk more units for what a Hui wants to do anyway. It is a little bit of an interesting delaying tactic. Did not see what the Annie picked up out of the trash, but I assume it was a pretty good spell, probably like a Starcrossed or something. Hui is awakened. And the Diana can go for some Hui nonsense here with a double conquer, but it will simply just get probably responded with an Annie double conquer of her own. Stack deck, obviously, very good starting position. Really want to make sure he knows as many options as possible. Selection made. Other two on the bottom. Moving on to Target Speak here. Resolving the Hui move trigger here. Does choose to discard a Starcross. Probably can't afford the loss in unit tempo that would come from deploying the Starcross. And that conquer has been acknowledged, as I assume there will be a sprite fountain out here. As we move to 4-4, sprite fountain, creating the sprite, moving in onto the down warrens. For presumably the 4-5 scoreline. Zan Warren's trigger has been resolved. Discard one, draw one. And another hidden unit left at the Down Warrens. Now, knowing his deck list, it is going to be a Tide Turner. There's nothing else that is in his list, but provides Hui with another option that can't be responded to here in order to protect that battlefield. Or an escape as well. Excuse me, it is very cold. Oh, and he decides to move in on the Hui here with both Vex and Overzealous Fan. Moonfall being deployed here. So definitely getting some good use out of this Moonfall currently. Can choose to move in either Annie or the Kaiser here. Diana really trying to construct a pretty nonsensical hold here, to be honest. If Diana can win out this exchange, she pretty much locks up the game from a unit tempo point of view. Moonfall still on the chain being considered. Ooh, Starcross coming out from Annie, obviously targeting the Hui.
I don't think the one is gonna solve the real vibes, like problems that Skirmish has on it. It's like not because it's not
Still things being considered here.
power up. No, I just started realizing that the previous one was stopped. I was like, oh no.
Starcross will resolve. Pretty tough here, 5-5 with the Conquer. Kaiser now moving on the Zanwarrens to reveal the hidden card. It is that Tide Turner. Obviously can't move anything. All the might is represented here for Diana on the table. Longsword here just to confirm the trade. And that is very tough for Diana here. We'll just explaining the Kaiser draw and the Zanwarrens trigger there, making sure that they are put on the chain in the correct sequence. 6-5 here for the Annie. Noxus Hopefuls, the second card of a turn. Incredible value being taken advantage of here for the Annie. Diana not having a lot of options left here. Sprite Fountain will provide one accelerated. Couldn't find it. It is GG's. Heaty will move on to the finals here. It is very tough after that last interaction. Couldn't hold on to it. Didn't find any counter spells for the Starcrossed, and just couldn't make it happen. We will be back for the finals probably in another 20 minutes or so. I'm not sure. Depends on if the other table is done yet. The other table is done. A 2-0 to more piece. So we will be right back with Annie versus LeBlanc.